All right, here we are. I don't know what episode we're on. We'll call it like episode 8 or 9. Who knows? Jacob Walker is a professional strength and conditioning coach currently working for the State Department. And I've had a couple of run ins with Jake as a strength coach when I was there at the State Department. And Jake is two things. He's what you call a full grown man. He is a big fella, if you will, but he's also exceedingly knowledgeable in the world that we live in strength and conditioning. So, Jacob, that's my brief intro. If you dive in a little deeper, that'd be great.
Yeah, so kind of already hit part of it. Took a walk over the State Department. Been a strength and conditioning coach for probably about 17, 18 years now. Was a competitive power lifter, made at Westside, trained with metal militia. That's kind of where I cut my teeth as a coach, was in that community. Was a college athlete. I've coached at the college level. I've worked in the private sector with professional athletes and local athletes. I still do a little bit of work in the private sector. But once I kind of switched over to working with the tactical population, it takes up a lot of my time. I just kind of really dove into that and put a lot of the strength sports, I would say behind me. I still work some guys there, but I just kind of really fell in love with working with the tactical population. My best friend growing up, he's now a career fires. When he joined the fire service about the same time I enlisted, and that was kind of my intro to tactical strength conditioning in the gaps at the time. This was by 2012, 2013 time frame. There wasn't really anything there, at least for like big DoD. I think special operations was starting to get ramped up with the Thor 3, but it wasn't trickling out to the rest of us at that point. Definitely law enforcement, fire rescue, let's see any of it. So that was kind of the intro right there to tactical strength conditioning. So I got out of the Air Force. It's kind of a natural flow for me to continue working with first responders, military personnel.
Yeah, dude, your career path and how you got here was damn cool. You know, the fact that you've turned your passion into a profession, but also you mentioned something like in 2013 there wasn't a whole lot going on with strength and conditioning in the tactical community, and we've both chosen a very similar path with our passions because having been in the military at that time, it was like, man, this is a huge gap. You're either a lifter or you're a runner, but you're seldom both. But in a tactical world, you have to be a degree of both. So who's training those things in the population that needs it? And at the time, there really wasn't anybody. CrossFit was like the best attempt at it.
Yeah,
But at least at the time, I thought that's what brought me into strength and conditioning as a whole. And I have obviously since detached and I do very different things. But the whole military was doing CrossFit, man. And that was like that glycolytic anaerobic capacity, Metcon stuff every
yep.
single day was fuel to, to a slowly declining fire in what was the right direction, I think, for us as a whole. And I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of hits. I saw the same thing I did. It was you're a runner or you were a bodybuilder, and that was about it. Or some guys claim to be power lifters. I enlisted a little bit later in life. I'd already been involved in powers for a long time. I already coached D3, D1 level. Had my undergrad in exercise science. So when I went into it, I knew like the functional fitness wasn't really the direction to go. Knew the bodybuilding route wasn't the way to go. Knew the marathon runner wasn't the way to go. I just took what I did at Westside and Metal Militia and just add some conditioning to it and back off on some of the volume and intensity because I was security forces. I was carrying a 240 or 249 every day, and we didn't have the Limas. We had the Bravos, so the big boys. We didn't have AG, so I had to carry all the ammo for it as well. It's like, man, I can't go max effort deadlift after this, but I still got to hit some kind of strength work, or I still get some kind of speed work. So that was kind of like just learning on the job and then getting feedback from other guys, trying to help other people, seeing the issues, some like the functional fitness stuff. I will say I'll give CrossFit. They have some great ideas or application, and they seem to be learning very rapidly, at least in the last few years, that we can't do snatches for time. We can't do high complexity, high velocity movements as part of a conditioning session. It's a little late. There are going to be a lot of people up, but at least it's adapting. So I got to give that to them.
Yeah, well, it got me into it. And I was like, man, this is barbell stuff is great. I need to be doing power cleans and deadlifts. And before that, I was just kind of doing push ups and running some pull ups. But kudos, they pulled me and a lot of guys into it. But you're absolutely right, man. CrossFit, High Rocks, all of these things are modalities of sport. And I think that if you look at the CrossFit Games competitors as a whole, you'll notice they have a periodized program where anywhere from 50 to 80% of their training is geared towards strength and power. And they do a lot of zone 2 aerobic base building before they move into anaerobic threshold, before they move into those metcons. And during that phase, they're working a lot of skill, like gymnastic skills. But to run a business model under periodization is less attractive because people want to go in and get their asses beat. And they equivocate that to being a really great workout, which is, I don't know if you've heard me say this, man. If I'm going to staple my foreskin to the fence tomorrow, I don't need to staple it to the fence today to prepare for tomorrow. And I hope that that creates a visceral response in my target market, because that is what you do when you consistently beat the shit out of yourself every day. You're not getting better. You might be getting more mentally tough, but you're certainly not becoming faster or stronger.
Yeah, I mean, there's a time and a place for hard training. It's not every day. And it's hard when you have A-type personalities. They want to do the hard things all the time. Um, and just say, hey, man, I need you to pump the brakes. Like, we're going 80% today, or we're not doing anything today. Like, it's hardwired into so many guys, like, especially like the community you come from. Like, they just want to go, go, go all the time. It was probably about a year or two ago. I was down in a unit, kind of observing some of their uh, like prep work, and they told the guys like, "Hey, this is a recovery run. We got a cognitive drill set up for you guys, so chill out." And they let the guys go in stages, but every one of them just pushed as hard as they could. And they're like, "Man, this is a PR. I got to go again." I'm like, I'm sitting there with a cognitive coach and a strength coach. I'm like, "You said this was a recovery run, right?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Why are they running 5 minute miles?" Oh, they're running like 3 and 4 miles at a time here. Like these guys are just getting it, and it's like get it with that with guys that are wired like that, saying do less or don't work as hard. It's hard to do. So yeah,
Dude, so I think why I'm successful in my space with Run, Lift, Perform is really because I get guys like that that come to me and they're like, okay, I'm doing all these things. And they give me like a sample of what their training week looks like. And they're like, I run 10 miles on Monday. I run 10 miles on Wednesday, and then I do a 5 mile time on Friday, and I'm RPE 9 on all my lifts. And they just go through this like over volumized, over intensified program. And one of the only things that makes me effective is I'm like, just stop and like, let's on ramp you with less volume, less intensity for a while. We'll build up to that, but your intensification period in your periodized program doesn't need to be 90% of your training. And telling a guy like that, like you just mentioned, 5 minute miles for multiple miles at a time on a recovery run, you take a guy like that and you force him to periodize his program and lay off some of that volume and intensity, and then they PR and you won. But getting
yeah,
them to that part, get it, because I've seen you work with runners that are like elite runners and they want to run all the time. I've seen you work with these dudes, and I've seen the doubt when you're telling them, like, yeah, man, 50 miles a week right now just isn't going to put you where you want to be. So, can you speak to that battle?
yeah. But, I mean, hit runners. I used to work with runners. When I first got out of the military, I was working doing the Service Academy prep work, and I was very blessed to have some Olympic caliber runners there, middle and long distance guys, and they hated that I had them gain weight until we got to the end of a 9 month block, and one of them ran Olympic level marathons. And he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm powering past guys up hills." I'm like, "Yeah, because we took 3 months and backed off and got you stronger, and then it started bringing you up to this race. We can't do it all at once, but that's somebody we can peak for him. That's easy to do. Working in sport, I mean, that's kind of easy when you're working with half the populations. There is no peaking. There is no game day. There is no tournament that we're prepping for. So it's hard to get to that peak with some of the guys. It's great in the training environment. Like most of the guys I work with, you get into the training center, they're in the training environment. So we can peak them to a point, hit that PR, and that helps so much with getting the buy-in. I'm thinking of one of the agents we have now. He's just absolutely yoked. A 500-pound bench presser. Dude's a monster. But he
Jesus.
trains 6 days a week and doesn't know why he always feels beat up. I mean, bro, like when I was a powerlifter, I was training 4 days a week. I got a professional strongman coach, and he's working 12-hour shifts as an electrician. He trains 3 days a week. Why are you training 6 days a week? And we get him to buy into it for about 6 weeks, and he sets a PR. Then he goes back and trains 6 days a week afterwards and wonders why he's feeling beat up again.
Yeah, dude.
It's like,
That's
yeah.
the population we deal with, and it's frustrating because I'm like, hey man, I have all these data points. I've done this for a while, and I have a fiduciary responsibility for you to do well. Because if you don't do well, it looks poorly upon me and my coaching. And I wish people would just understand that, but they equivocate pain to gain, and that is unfortunately it's not that easy.
We see a lot with like the kind of like the older guys, like the early GWAP guys are, well, this is what we did back in the day. It's just like you're kicking your dick in the dirt every day. But cool, man. How are your knees? How's your back? How's your shoulders? You're borderline crippled. Maybe if we only had one gut check a week or every other week or once a month, and we built up to that or we planned for it, we're still getting that gut check. We could still say that everyone's super hard and doing great stuff, but we're not going to have a long-term negative downfalls here. We're going to get more work out of the guys. We're going to have better performance at the end. It it's a cultural shift, I think, in the on the military side. A lot of the and we're seeing with DS as well. It's kind of that cultural shift to where we got to get out of that mindset to where we got to like beat ourselves down every day and understand it's time to take a step back, just recover, feel better, and then start building back up for those harder things.
Dude, absolutely. I've seen you do it. That's why you're here, because you do it well. I want to ask you, because I've been talking about this a lot in some of like my more informational posts, which unfortunately nobody really digs. But I'm going to keep putting them out because fuck you guys.
I like them.
Yeah, general physical preparedness in the tactical population, I'm saying needs to be 60 to 80% of your overall makeup. And then sports specific preparedness in the tactical populations, at least for those that carry a firearm or a weapon, needs to be anywhere from 20 to 40%. That's basically what I'm saying. Can you explain to me what your approach is, if it's different, how it's different, and why?
And I think it's going to be population dependent. Like the special agents, I say they're very generalized. So I say GPP is probably on the higher side there, 80 to 90%. Um, you see some of the special agents, we don't have a lot of specialized people to where it's, hey, you're a breacher or an assaulter, you're a canine handler. With firefighters, I'm not worried about them like pulling ceilings down or breaching doors, anything like that. It's close protection 90% of the time. So we're probably a little more on the GPP side of that than the SPP side. I would say your breakdown is pretty on point. The foundation of everything's going to be your GPP, your aerobic fitness, your power output, your strength output, your ability to repeat those outputs, absolutely. And then we can start getting into the specifics from there. We had a guy last green team. He's like, man, I'm struggling with casualty evacuations. What should I do? I'm like, have you thought about deadlifting? And he's like, well, I thought about actually need to do more dummy drags. Like, all right, cool, man. Well, let's walk through a dummy drag to figure out like kind of the mechanics of this, and we do. And I was looking like a deadlift and remaining deadlift. It's just task relevance. It's general physical preparedness for a specific thing. I think it was pro officers when they were doing that source of tail under their cycle. So, hey, man, if you would have been doing this for the 4 months leading up to this, you wouldn't be getting your ass kicked by a dummy out here doing casualty evacuations because you want to sandbag for 4 months and have every excuse to not train hard. Now we're having this conversation because you're getting your shit kicked by a dummy every day. A little late, but hopefully the lesson sticks and we can fix this one. But yeah, I'd say you're right. Most people kind of flip that and they get way too specific. And I teach this with our basic class, task relevance versus task mirroring. We don't have to mirror the task to get better at it. Build a big base, get stronger, get faster, build a big aerobic base, and then we can start dialing into the actual job specific tasks that we need you to do. Yeah.
I dig that. I wanted to ask you because I knew that you had trained at Westside. And for those of you who do not know what Westside Barbell is, it is That was like powerlifting mecca for a couple of decades, and maybe more than a couple of decades. I mean, Louis Simmons did that. That guy's in my old powerlifting magazines, dated back from the mid '80s. So definitely the pioneer of the conjugate method, and really molded and crafted how a lot of people lifted and busted through seemingly impossible PRs. Can you talk about your time at Westtime, Jacob, and talk about like what from that world have you carried on into the tactical training, strength and conditioning GPP that you do today?
Yeah, so my first time there, I was 18 years old, at 6'4" and a whole 180 something pounds. So I remember calling Louis, leaving Bridgewater college. It was spring break. I heard about Westside. A guy that I was training with at the time had me do like a Westside program. It's like I'm just gonna go up there and figure out what it's about. I didn't know it was invite only. I didn't know anything about it. I just called the number I found online. Who answered the phone? Say, hey man, I'm in my truck. I'm driving to Ohio. He goes, well, how far are you? I'm like halfway there. He goes, well shit. Yeah, I guess you can come train tomorrow morning. Don't be late. And just hung the phone up. So here I am pulled the Westside Barbell the next day, and I'm I get put on the side of the gym where like the small guys and the women are training, and I see all the big dudes on the side of the gym was there, and I'd never seen somebody as big as the guys at Westside Barbell at the time. I'm just in awe of how big and strong these guys are. I'll never forget this. Louis, I guess, was pissed off at them for some reason, pick any reason for that day. Comes over, pulls the folding chair from the mall, lifts them in, watches me do a couple of sets, and then announces to the whole gym's like, man, for a tall, skinny guy, you sure squat pretty good. He didn't give out compliments, so it put a target on me right there. A lot of guys weren't really too fond of that. Next day, he throws me in with a 900-pound bench presser, do some bamboo bar work, and he's pissed off that they ever strip all this weight off the bamboo bar for me to get in. I never used a bamboo bar. I get hit in the face, I get hit in the hips. It's going everywhere except where it's supposed to go. And again, I'm just embarrassing myself. But what really kind of like stood out was I'm getting coached every rep. Like it doesn't matter if it was Lou or another lifter or whoever it was, even if they're just in there hanging out, I'm getting coached every rep. And I'm getting feedback from world class power lifters. It doesn't matter if I'm doing dumbbell floor press or bench press or squatting or deadlifting or reverse hypers. Every rep, every set is being coached. So I was very fortunate to have that kind of exposure very early in my life by getting that level of coaching. And I'd go up to Westside maybe a couple times a year, just kind of go up there, lift, learn what I could, go back to Bridgewater. A lot of my professors weren't super thrilled that showing up to my strength conditioning, my exercise science classes, and I'm writing conjugate programs, and they have no idea what I'm putting on paper. They're like, "What? What do you mean accommodative resistance? What bar speed? Max effort method? Like that's dangerous." And I'm like, "Take a look," and I'm showing them books. I'm showing them the limited research that we had at the time. So, very early in my coaching career, I definitely drank the Kool-Aid, and I was very, there's two ways to train. There's the West Side way, and there's the wrong way. Uh, as I watched kind of Louis kind of evolve and the West Side method evolve and what's being published versus what I was actually seeing at the gym, how I was adapting that to my own training, to the guys at Metal Militia, and I was training with them, and then how I'm kind of doing that with like football players and volleyball players, the marathoners, 100-meter runners. How do you adapt that to those guys? That kind of opened my eyes. It's like, okay, there's more than two ways to train. There's actually a lot of right ways to train. It's about figuring out, really, it's not the West Side method, it's the conjugate method that I needed a better understanding of. Because the conjugate method is, all it is you train complementary qualities. It doesn't have to be max effort, dynamic effort. It's just complementary qualities. The West Side method is conjugate for powerlifters. Conjugate was derived from the Soviets for their track athletes. And then Louis read the books, translated them, read the books, brought them to America, and started using it for powerlifters. So we start kind of backpedaling a little bit to what the Soviets were doing for sport with conjugate. It became much easier for me to start adapting that to sport and then to tactical population. And I frustrated a few people a few years back. I told them I don't really do a lot in the way of conjugate, like traditional type conjugate with the tactical population because you guys aren't barbell athletes. Yeah, it's cool to say you squat 500 pounds, but does it make you feel better? Not really. Does it make you communicate better? Not really. To a point, yeah, it helps with the running, it helps with the deceleration, it helps with casualty evacuation, things like that. But I started to kind of shift my mindset to where we just need strength training. We got to do something heavy, something fast, and some intersystem development. So we're going to try to trade complementary qualities, but we got some other stuff on the back burner. So it became more like, I don't want to say hybrid training, but it was kind of conjugate based hybrid type training, if that makes any sense. To where we have complementary qualities that's in meat and potatoes, but we kept the other qualities that still need to have in our back pocket ready to go, kind of just on the back burner for that training session or that block. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. One thing that you said that I probably have shied away from programming is having like the dynamic, the fast portion of lists. And I've told people when you are on your deload phase, that's when I want you moving dynamically. That's probably counterintuitive to what you've learned and grown and seen to be true. Can you talk to that?
Yeah, so I mean, dynamic, um, it's still very neurally fatiguing if you're doing it properly. So even on deloads, I'll back way off on the volume with dynamic effort, just because again, if you're doing it right, it's very neurally fatiguing. That's a lot like jumps and sprints. If you're doing it right, still 100% uh, intensity is just less weight on the bar, so you're moving it substantially faster. I stopped doing a lot of barbell dynamic effort work, tactical population, because I started seeing, hey, I'm programmed to 60% for 8 sets of three. They're like, yeah, it's too easy for three, so I ramped it up to 80% for 6 sets of three. I'm like, fuck, dude, I need you moving fast. Getting them to use like some of the apps you can find these days, or buying like an OVR or a Vitroon or something to where spend $100 and you can actually watch bar velocity. That's been huge. Now I don't care what weight you have on the bar. I want you to do 8 sets of three at 1 meter per second. If you're not moving 1 meter per second, adjust the weight. And we even do the same kind of things on strength movements. Hey, if you're not moving between like 0.25 and zero point 0.3 meters per second, adjust weight to get your reps in that range for your strength work. Again, max effort work, I love it. Do I need to have a special agent do it all the time? Probably not. They're more general strength. I still love working into max effort when we can. There's not always a time and a place for that. We don't have the capability for it as well. But I can say, hey, just get like, 4 sets of 4 or 5 sets of 4. And I want your bar velocity to be at 0.25 to zero point 0.3. We're still checking that strength block. And it's also going to put kind of a nice safety on them so they don't go too heavy and their form goes out the window and they get hurt. But going back to what you're asking about dynamic effort, again, like for me on deloads, I'm backing off on that as well because same thing with jumps, same thing with sprints. I'm cutting the volume in half on that. I might work them up. They're only going to get one true high velocity movement on the sprint on their deload week. Because again, if we're doing 4 or 5 high velocity, 20 or 30 meter sprints, it's still incredibly neurally fatiguing. The whole point of a deload, I want you to just chill out and recover and get ready for that next block.
No, that makes sense, man. And I'm a victim of what I chastise people on all the time. I'm like, well, it's a deload, but we can really push it right here, you know? And
Yep.
I think that's probably the less right answer as far as programming goes. And hearing you say it, my wheels are turning and I'm like, all right, where can I make improvements?
But what I do with a lot of my deloads is guys who just need something. Hey, we're just doing like just a big GPP week, and hey, I want you to do like put 2 push-ups and a pull-up, and do as many rounds as you can in 5 minutes. And we'll just like do circuits like that. So you're still working hard, still checking that box, like for your sanity to do something hard, but it's nothing that's really gonna like blow you out the water and screw you up for the next block.
I like that. Like an AMRAP with, calisthenics, where you basically put that dude in a cage where he can't hurt himself.
Yep. Yep. But there's still a goal saying, hey, I want you to work as hard as you can in 5 minutes. And we're going to do like 3 different AMRAPs that day. They're all 5 to 10 minutes each. And like, hey, man, by all means, go to town with like, lat pull downs and tricep press downs. I don't care. Like, You're not going to get hurt. It's not going to screw you up for benching or squatting or sprinting next week. Just go to town with it. Have fun.
I like that. I like that. I'm taking that tool for my toolbox. I mean, most of my training programs are spreadsheet based and not RPE. Like guys will plug in their metrics at the start of the 4-week cycle, and it's I guess similar to Windler, at least the strength portions. And then depending on what distance they're training for, it's integrated in. Same thing. They put in the run times in it, programs it all out. The free programs I put out are like RPE based, and I just post those every day. But my question to you is, and I've heard disparaging things about assigning a certain weight to a guy in a GPP program because maybe his nervous system is out of whack that day. He got in a fight with his wife, didn't have enough nutrition, and he slept like shit. Assigning him a weight to perform that day is not ideal. What's your take on that?
I think it's good to assign weights because you need some kind of loading parameter. What I do with Green Team is that we use an APRE system, so autoregulatory progressive resistance exercise. And there's two ways to approach this. It can be, hey, I want you to squat 200 pounds a day for as many as you can, and your goal rep is 8. If you get more than 8, let's say you get 10, we're going to add 5 pounds for every rep over 8, and you're going to give you one more set all out. So if you're having a good day, fucking right, man, like we just got 2 big sets in, and you set a PR maybe. But if you're having a bad day, you come in, you get 4. Hey, we're going to take 5 pounds off for every rep under 8, and you're going to get one more set so we can try to get that 8 rep range that we want. That's one way to do it, or velocity based training, where I talk about put a velocity in there. Hey, I want you to use 200 pounds and get as many reps as you can within this velocity range. And it might be 1, it might be 5. And again, give them some like kind of like rep guidance. Hey, if you get more, we're shooting for 3 here. If you get 5, bump the weight. And so that we could try to get 3 reps in that velocity range that we want. And say if they go the other way, hey, you got stapled at 1, cool, man, pull 20 pounds off the bar, and let's try to figure out where you need to be that day. VBT, APRE, I think, are super helpful tools. I've tried just saying, hey, RPE or RIR, and I like using it for auxiliary movements, but like our primary movements, I found I have to assign weight to guys, or they're just way undershoot or way overshoot where I want them to be.
Same, dude. So the same. I'm glad to hear you say that because it means I don't have to rework any of my programming, which is
Yep.
great. Now, okay, I used to own a gym in Dallas. I owned a couple of gyms, but the one that I ran was called Paramount Strength and Conditioning. And we experimented with something. I can't remember where I read it, but we would have the individuals come in and do a vertical jump test. And based on their baseline vertical jump and where they were that day is what we assigned to them. And the experiment ultimately ran for like 6 months worth of programming. And I thought, man, this was the answer. It did work. Because some guys would come in like, oh man, I felt like shit. I did not sleep well. Nutrition was garbage. And it's like, well, let's see where your vertical jump test is. And they'd crush it and they'd have the lift of their life. And for whatever reason, that test bypassed the emotional attachment to the physical. And we were able to differentiate, okay, this guy he may feel like shit, but he's about to perform great.
Yep.
Do you incorporate any of that? Do you believe in that? We stopped after 6 months because it costs so many coaches to run this the right way. And we didn't have athlete buy-in. Nobody wanted to jump as high as they could as soon as they walked in.
So I was talking to some coaches about this at Bragg yesterday when I was down there, kind of bouncing around some different facilities. It's an awesome tool. A lot of people these days are using force plates for it, just because it saves a little bit of time. At DS, we don't do a vertical jump test. We use a grip test. And if you're 15% off your average, we know that you're probably going to have a bad day. If you're above, we know you're probably going to have a good day. So what you just described is kind of the foundation for a lot of the readiness testing that you're seeing out these days that people are spending tens of thousands of dollars on systems for with, mid-thigh pulls or plates to kind of get some kind of like force output measure. I think you got guys using a jump mats too, very similar power plates. Like, so we did grip tests just because there's no skill there. It's the one issue I saw with jump tests is you got somebody who doesn't know how to jump well. Well, did they just hit a PR because they're at a higher readiness level that day, or did the PR because they just learned to jump?
Good point.
That's the only discrepancy I ever saw. But it doesn't happen very often. Most people know how to jump straight up. When we talk about a broad jump, I think there's a bigger margin of error there. I used to see it all the time when I was working with Circus Academies because they had a broad jump test. It made me look like a great coach because we put 2 feet on someone's broad jump. It wasn't like they got better or got really stronger, more explosive. We just taught them how to jump. Easy enough, right?
Yeah.
But actually, there's a ton of research to support that. I knew a bunch of coaches in the private sector who do it every time our athletes come in. It's either a sprint test, a vertical jump test of some sort, or a grit test. What we're about to do at DS, I'm hoping this works out, so I'm knocking on wood here so I don't, like Jane said, bringing in some different wearables so we can start stacking, whether it's Aura or Garmin or something like that. We can now start looking at HRV. We can start looking at the respiratory rate, and then also whatever readiness system I throw out them as they're coming in the gym. So by the time I'm done warming up, I can look at all this data on my dashboard and I can go back, hey, Christian, I need you to back off 10 pounds a day. And then look at your training partner, hey, bro, add 5 pounds a day. Before you even touch the barbell, I know, hey, like your HRV was off, your respiratory rate is off. That's a huge thing. Like people kind of sleep on respiratory rate, and your grip was shit today. Let's just back off for that first working set and see what happens.
Dude, this is touching on another question I wanted to ask you because when I left the State Department, you were working a lot with heart rate. I know enough about heart rate variability to get myself into trouble with somebody that knows a lot more. I would love your take on it, like what you found measuring heart rate metrics on resting agents as well as performing agents, what that tells you about in the gym. And if you could just hit the wave tops and talk about HRV a little bit, because I know that I could gain some more education on it.
So HRV on like a readiness standpoint, I think it's hard to use like one data point there. One, you got to get a baseline. People will sleep on this all the time. It takes about 2 weeks to get a decent baseline on somebody. I can't just throw an aura ring on you for one night, like boom, I got your HRV. I need about 2 weeks of data on you. Once we have that, let's say your HRV is 40. You come in one day and it's 38. I'm not worried about that. You come in the next day and it's 36. Now I kind of got my attention. You come in the next day, you're still sitting below your baseline. Now I'm going to figure out what's going on. Let's even start taking a deeper dive into why is your HRV kind of trending down. I think people will see one, like their one day of their HRV being down is like, fucked up. I can't train today. Or we're going to have a bad day training. I mean, it could have just been, hey, you had you drank a little too close to going to bed and you threw up the HRV. It could have been you forgot to take your magnesium. Could have been you trained a little bit harder that day. Any number of things you throw it off for a day. But if we see it a couple of days in a row, again, now we're looking at, hey, there's probably an issue with readiness. And that's why I like saying respiratory rate. Your normal respiratory rate is, let's say, 16 breaths per minute. And you come in the next day and it's 20 breaths per minute. That one data point from that one day tells me there's something wrong with you. Respiratory rate, I think, as an acute measure, will tell you more about readiness. Going back to heart rate, when it comes to hard skills training, what we're really just looking at there is, for me on the performance side, is your recoverability. When you get that spike, cool, we want it. I want to see that arousal level go up. It's going to do a lot of great things for performance. The issue is if you stay up, I need you to bring that arousal level back down. That's why we teach corrective breathing patterns in the gym during their max heart rate sessions. Get that max heart rate, hit above 90%. And then in that downtime, I want to teach you corrective breathing patterns. For me, it's going to be close your mouth or inhale in, long inhale out. I don't overcomplicate this count. I want short in, long out, diaphragmatic. I shouldn't see your chest move, and nasal breathe as much as possible. It's hard to do when you're max heart rate, but we try to really ingrain that with the guys. So when they're shooting, doing room entry, SCT, pros, whatever it is, they're not thinking about, okay, cool, close my mouth, short in, belly breathe, I can keep my chest moving. The guys who do it, when we see them in room entry, they do really well because they're able to process much quicker, they're able to communicate much more effectively. They don't make as many mistakes. The guys who cannot do that, their heart rate stays super jacked up and they're almost over breathing most of the time. That's when you see they get away with it with one room. They might get away with it for a second room. but rooms 3 or 4, the next hallway, that's when we start seeing they're not using the right tactics, they're not communicating well, they're flagging people, they're walking in front of somebody they're not supposed to walk in front of. The wheels start coming off pretty fast. I've talked to a couple of groups about this, and they see the exact same thing. We can try to teach this in the gym, but it's also on the hard skill side. You just kind of got to get the reps. So like, what I'm looking at is just your recoverability from like rep to rep with that hard skill. What the hard skills guys are looking at is, are we hitting the right stressor with them? Helping out like the DM course right now, we're tracking not just heart rate, we're also looking at total ground covered, acceleration reps, max velocity reps, and then average speed, like actual like miles per hour on top of, I think we're adding hit factor to it. There's a number of metrics bringing in here. But when they sprint somewhere, cool, one how fast they're moving, we see the heart rate go up. When they get to the actual shooting stage, can they get that heart rate down? So for the hard skills instructor, he wants to actually make sure we're getting that heart rate up. That's great. We're getting the stretch response he wants. And then for me, are we getting the heart rate down? Because, hey, you're now having to shoot a 14.5 inch 5.56 to 600 yards. Not the easiest thing to do. Got to get that heart rate down. But again, for the hard skills guy, we need a stressor there. So it's kind of what are we trying to do with heart rate? And that's going to kind of dictate what I'm looking for with it.
Dude, that pings a couple of things for me because I became aware of how another tier 1 unit, not the Army's, the other one, selected people based on their performance in the house doing CQB, what the State Department calls room entry, with a heart rate monitor on. And so even if the guy was making the right decision in processing the room and executing targets, if his heart rate was off and he was showing too high of a stress level, that candidate was seen as a lesser performer. And
Yeah.
right, wrong, or indifferent, you just spoke to it, and what you're seeing in room entry with the people that you're training over there at the State Department is heart rate variability. Their ability to regulate is conducive to better performance when they're in the house.
Typically, yes. I think we were talking about tier 1 guys. It's kind of like, comparing like a show line German Shepherd to a working line Belgian Mal. Yeah, they're
Fair.
both working dog. Tier 1 guys are a whole different animal. There's another tier 1 unit down at Bragg, Army side. They looked at that and they dumped it. I just heard about the other tier 1 unit that you mentioned doing that from one of their prior operators. And I was like, man, I don't really support that because I know a lot of guys who are super sympathetic. Their heart rate stays jacked up and they're just some of the most efficient people you ever meet.
Yes.
There was a tier 2 unit. I was talking to their COG guy, and he was saying your new guys are super mellow outside the house. The second they pop a door, their heart rate goes up. Or your seasoned guys, the exact opposite. They're super jacked up outside, but once that door gets breached, they just kind of hit their flow state. Uh, to me, it's you need to know your person. You can't just have this blanket approach. We got a guy in green team now. I call him he's a slow twitch Ken. I cannot get his heart rate above 80% max heart rate, and I have tried. I think we've touched 90% once, and this guy's just dying on the assault bite, and it's just he's almost in tears. I'm grabbing the handle of him, and it's just not budging. Does that mean he's a low performer? No. Does it mean he's going to be bad in the house because we can't get a higher arousal out of him? No, he's pretty solid. On the other side of that, again, just know your people. If they run more on the sympathetic side and they stay super jacked up, okay, how's their stock group? How's their decision making? This is why the cognitive performance side is getting so much attention right now. Is kind of getting not just like a general baseline, but okay, like how do you recognize these outliers who work really well at low ends and really well at high ends? And is it really worth trying to fix them? From my seat, and I'm not a cognitive performance guy, from my seat, I do want to see that, that upward and downward flow. If I'm working with a tier 1 guy, you're here for a reason. I'm probably not going to step into that lane and tell them to do something different. Again, I don't work with tier 1 guys, so I'm probably speaking out of line there, but that's just my opinion on it.
No, I have spoke to strength coaches over there and on both sides. and kind of pick their brain on why they do certain things. And I shared it with you because you're in a very similar position, just for a different organization, albeit not tier one, but with a very similar pipeline and responsibilities, at least. And they're being evaluated on a lot of the same criteria, like shot groups, the ability to process a room. And so it's interesting to get your take on it. I very much am against selecting somebody based on heart rate variability, because based on what I've seen out of the most successful operational dudes is they are vastly different in how they approach things. And no one dude has the same brain that processes the same way. Like, most of my audience that's going to watch these things are guys that are not operational yet, or they're attempting to pursue a career in special operations, federal law enforcement, or one of the slew of other elite level things they can do, smoke jumpers, wildland firefighters, stuff like that. If you had the ability to give 3 things to those guys as far as tools for their training toolbox, what would you tell these dudes that would make them more successful in their endeavors and in achieving their overall goals?
I think the first one's going to be consistency. There's no 8 week fix or 12 week fix. You got to consistently put the time in. Give me 3 days a week for, an hour per session. That's going to be a whole lot better than, you know, busting ass for 8 weeks, 2 days a week, 3 hours per session. If you can get in the gym consistently, 52 weeks out of the year, you got to do that. The next thing is going to be intent. Go into the gym, know what your intent is. We kind of talked a little bit about, not every session needs to be a gut shot, but don't just be lackadaisical with your training. You can't just walk in, oh, so that's 3 sets of 8, and I'm your career suit, 3 sets of 8. Like, no, you should know that you trained today. Hit that workout with whatever the prescribed intent is. If it's RPE 8, cool. Be honest with yourself about being an RPE 8. If we're doing conditioning and I say max heart rate, you better be fucking hitting max heart rate. I got to get on guys so much about that. Same thing on zone 2 work. If I'm sitting 125 beats a minute, I don't want to see you at 185.
Thank you.
Back off.
Thank you.
Consistency, intent, and don't overcomplicate things. Do the simple things. The highest performers I've ever seen, strength athletes, track and field athletes, military, they do the simple things really well. You don't have to do crazy, like, Instagram worthy programs. Like, man, like, that's cool shit. Like, that's functional. I need to do that. Like, I tell my guys to push, pull, squat, hinge, carry, brace. If you do all of that 2 to 3 times a week, you're winning.
Agreed.
So it's not a super flashy, sexy answer, but that's what I'll hit on is consistency, intent, and keep it simple.
If it's super flashy and sexy, someone's selling something you don't need.
100%.
I wish it didn't take me until I was 38 years old to realize that. But if it's super sexy and flashy and they want you to buy it, you're being sold snake oil. Unfortunately, actually getting better just takes consistency of effort, discipline, and a little bit of sacrifice, because sometimes on a Friday night, you got to hit your numbers and you can't just go out to the bar and party.
Yep. I had a guy ask me earlier, it was last week, he goes, man, like, how do I get jacked with people like we're up in business house 15? It just takes time. I'm in the gym 3 to 4 days a week, every week since I was 15. Only breaks I had when I was in basic training, when I was in the hospital, and when I'm on vacations. And even on vacation, I'm usually doing something. Like, just got to put the time in. He's like, shit. I'm like, yeah, man. If I could, like, give you a magic pill and in 12 weeks you're gonna be super jacked, I would. But it's illegal for me to give you that pill. So it just takes time. You gotta be consistent.
Dude, it's funny. I was talking to a guy in the last podcast I did. He pulls 620 and he runs his mile in 5 minutes and 5 seconds. And the only reason I had him on the podcast is because he commented on my iron mile concept that I'm doing, and he put those numbers in. And you got to work up to a 1 max deadlift and then run a mile for time, all within 20 minutes. And he's like, yeah, these are my numbers. And I went on his Instagram page to call bullshit. I was like, bullshit. And he had a video doing a 625-pound deadlift and another video doing a 5K in like 18 minutes. And I was like, all right. And then I find a video of him doing a ultra and then deadlifting 595 pounds within 6 hours of each other. And I was like, I was wrong. I was like, would you like to come on the podcast? All that's to say is I assumed he was going to be on drugs. I assumed he was going to be on some form of testosterone. This kid is 29 years old. He's a purist, won't even deadlift with a belt. And I was like, dudes like you make me want to be on drugs. I was like, dude, you're disgusting. What are you, like a genetic phenom? And he's like, no, I'm just really consistent. He was like, I never
Yeah.
miss. He was like, I had diarrhea yesterday and I was vomiting all day. And I decided to run 20 miles that evening to feel better. And I was like, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Time, consistency. There's a genetic component. I hate to burst some people's bubble. There is like,
Yeah, I'm never going to be 6 foot tall,
yeah, I was about
unfortunately.
to say, I don't want to say it here. You're never going to play in the NBA.
Dude, despite my best efforts, I'm not going to be in the NBA anytime soon.
Yeah. So there's a genetic component, but it's not an excuse. Put the time in, put the effort in. It's not going to happen in 12 weeks unless you're a genetic phenom. It's going to take years. And I lose so many agents and so many clients. I'm like, hey, man, this is a 2 year fit. What? I mean, first thing we got to do is get you out of pain. That can take 1 month, can take 4 months. After we get you out of pain and get you moving, then we can start actually doing the things you want to do. But right now, it's like you're wincing trying to tie your shoes. We got to handle that first. They'll probably fuck off and find something on Instagram, but they always come back 6 months later, more broken, and we'll start working with them. It might be a year, it might be 2 years. If they listen, we get them where they want to go. And again, it takes time. People still want to hear that.
Yeah, dude. Everyone wants the fast thing. Everyone wants the new fast thing. It's just not new and it's
Yep,
not fast. Dude, this podcast has been one of my favorites because I actually got to ask questions that I wanted the answers to and clarification. And like I knew you had worked out at Westside. That was huge for me because I didn't work out at Westside. And the conjugate method, when you first start to learn about conjugate training, it's pretty confusing. But you broke it down well, and I appreciate that because I feel like I learned something from this, and I think the audience most certainly will too. And I think we need to do a follow up, and I got a
absolutely.
couple ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I had a guy at my desk recently. He's confused on conjugate. I'm like, hey, man, pick 3 bench movements, pick 2 squats and a deadlift you like. And he picked them. We just wrote out on the board. It's like, that's it. I'm like, yeah, bro, that's it. Like, you get something heavy one day, you get something fast another day. Where are you deficient? That's what we plug in the auxiliary movements for. And, hey, if you got, again, I work with a marathoner. Cool. We're probably not going to do max effort squats. We're going to do a little more on the work capacity side. You just train the complementary qualities and you split them by about 72 hours. So as I said, it's kind of like block periodization after that. It's everything else is on the back burner. It's not your focus, but you hit it enough so that you don't lose that residual. I think the NREP's made it overcomplicated. It really isn't that tough. Not winning has some really good stuff out on the conjugate method that's definitely meant for meatheads to understand. I'm not a huge Matt Winning fan just because of things that happen with him and Louis, but he does have some great information out there on the conjugate method.
Yeah, unfortunately, not all the brightest people are the best people. But dude, I dug this podcast. I dig you. I dig what you're doing, man. And I'd like to have you on again for sure. Probably when I develop enough questions to fill an hour, which could be as early as next week. But also, man, I feel like when I saw how you program, I was like, damn, that's solid. This is extreme common sense, and I appreciated it. I asked you questions before you knew I had a background in strength and conditioning at all, and you were answering them in a way that just instilled confidence. Like if I was a special agent coming to you wanting to get better, I would have confidence that you would be able to do that, and you do it well. So kudos, and thanks for coming on to the podcast. And I'm looking forward to a potential collaboration in the future, maybe like a Jake Walker conjugate hybridized program of some form. I feel like you could probably pull that off.
Yeah, let me know. We can work something out.
All right, hell yeah, man. Yeah. And do you have any side hustles in the strength and conditioning world I can push people to or promote now?
I mean, I coach a couple of guys on the side, but it is very few. And also, it's kind of an application thing. If I'm at work 12 hours a day already, when I'm out of work, I don't want to be working more. So if I take on clients, convince me why I should give you my very limited free time. I do pro bono work for first responders. I will, as long as you're within a reasonable driving distance to me, I'll drive out to your department. I will do a free half day or full day seminar for you. If I'm driving 5 hours, we're make it a full day to make it worth my time, right? But if you're, just down the road, we do a half day, whatever you guys want. But besides that, I'm in a very fortunate position to where I don't really need a side hustle, so I don't put a ton of time or effort into it. But I said some guys hit me up. I try to help them if I can. I said
Hell yeah.
first responder, email me, call me. If I'm on social media, always drop me a line and see if I can get out to your department, tell me what issues you guys are having, and I'll bring some material. I'll try to help you with it.
Hell yeah. And I'll put whatever contact contacts you give me in the description so that folks looking for you can find you. Dude, it was good. It was kick ass as always. I'm looking forward to the next one. Jacob Walker.
Yep. Thanks. See ya.